I thought I knew my husband. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of shared mornings, plans, dreams about children. And then, another woman's perfume on his shirt. He started coming home late. Stopped looking into my eyes. Phone face down. Smiles that weren't for me. I told him I was leaving for a business trip. Instead, I rented a car, put on a wig, and followed him. I watched him walk out of his office with her, open the car door for her, laugh with her in the pizzeria he once called our place. Through a large glass window, I saw my husband holding another woman's hand. And in that moment, I understood. Betrayal isn't when he touches her. Betrayal is when he stops choosing you. This is a story about heartbreak, about truth that cuts deeper than glass, and about a woman who decides she will never stay silent again.
Love Stories Max. Welcome to my channel. Enjoy watching, friends.
8 years, one truth. My name is Monica. I'm 32, and for 8 years, I believed my marriage was forever. For 8 years I woke up next to Paul and thought I knew his breathing, his footsteps, his silence. But in the past few months, that silence changed. It became colder. It wasn't peaceful anymore, it felt foreign. At first, it was small things. He became distracted. He looked through me like I was glass. He used to tell me about his day, about numbers, reports, how stressful it was being the chief accountant in that big corporate building where everyone demanded something from him. But now, just a short, it was fine, and his phone placed face down. Then I smelled it. Women's perfume. Sweet, light, young. It clung to his shirt when I was sorting laundry. I stood there holding that fabric in my hands, and I couldn't breathe. Because that scent did not belong to my life. Not to my skin. Not to my home. He started coming home late. Said it was reports, audits, deadlines. I'm a pediatrician. I understand exhaustion. But exhausted people don't hide their eyes. They don't rush straight to the shower. They don't go to bed without even kissing you goodnight. I would lie next to him and stare into the dark. It felt like there wasn't a bed between us anymore. It was an ocean. I didn't scream. I didn't cause scenes. I waited, and I collected facts the way a doctor collects symptoms before making a diagnosis. And then I decided I would find out the truth. I told him I was leaving for a week-long professional training, a certification course, new pediatric methods, updated protocols. He didn't even ask for details. He smiled, and there was no sadness in that smile, only relief. That was the first time I felt truly afraid. On the second day of my business trip, I rented a different car. Gray, unremarkable. I put on a blonde wig, light hair falling over my shoulders, making me look like someone else, even to myself. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Maybe Paul hasn't recognized me for a long time either. I followed him from early morning. He worked in a large glass building, cold on the outside, just like his gaze had been lately. I parked across the street and waited. Nothing happened until lunch. Then I saw them. She walked out with him. Young, slim, long dark hair. She said something, and he laughed. The way he hadn't laughed with me in months. They went to the cafe across the street. I tried to convince myself. Everyone eats there. It's just lunch. Just co-workers. Just nothing. I waited until the end of the workday. And when the building doors opened again, they walked out together. Not separately. Not accidentally. Together. He opened the passenger door of his car for her. The same door he once opened for me. She got in, lightly touching his hand. I followed them. They stopped at a pizzeria. Our pizzeria. The place where we celebrated anniversaries. The place where he once told me I was his home. Through the large windows I could see them clearly. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers turned white. They were laughing. She leaned closer to him, touched his shoulder, his hand. He held her hand across the table. This was not a business meeting. This was intimacy. Easy, natural, alive. The kind of intimacy we hadn't had in a long time. I took a few photos. My hands were shaking. The screen blurred with tears. At one point he leaned in closer to her, and I felt something inside me tear. Like 8 years of my life shattered into glass. I don't remember driving away. I only remember sobbing behind the wheel. Loudly, wildly, as if someone was pulling my heart out without anesthesia. I thought about all the mornings I made him coffee. All the nights I waited up for him. The children we planned but said, not yet. Maybe for him, it was already time. Just not with me. The most painful part isn't the betrayal of the body. The most painful part is the betrayal of choice. Every day, he chose not me. I'm a doctor. I save children. I am strong. I am intelligent. But that night, I was just a woman watching her love sit in a pizzeria with someone else. And laugh. And in that moment, I realized, I don't want to be the woman who suspects anymore. I don't want to live in a silence colder than betrayal. I didn't yet know what I would say to him. But I knew one thing. I would not stay silent anymore. Because even if my heart is broken, it is still mine. I don't remember where I was driving. I just pressed the gas and drove into the darkness outside the city. Tears flooded my eyes until the road became nothing but a blurred ribbon of light. I could barely see the curves ahead. I could barely feel the steering wheel in my hands. Inside me, everything was screaming. 8 years. 8 years of love, and now I was running from my own life. I wiped my eyes for just a second. That was enough. The car swerved. The tires slipped off the pavement. A violent jerk. A scream. I'm not even sure it was mine. The car plunged into the ditch. One roll, then another. Metal crushing. The world literally turned upside down. And then, silence. I was hanging upside down. The seatbelt cut into my body. Acrid smoke began filling the cabin. It burned my throat, my lungs, my eyes. I couldn't breathe. My fingers fumbled with the buckle. Finally, click, I fell onto what used to be the roof, now the floor beneath me. My head spun. The door, I pulled the handle. Once, twice, again, locked. The air was disappearing. Panic tightened around my chest harder than the seatbelt had. This is not how my life ends, I thought. I pounded on the door. Coughed. Tried to scream. The smoke grew thicker. The edges of my vision darkened. For the first time in my life, I was truly terrified. Not because of Paul, not because of betrayal, because I might die like this. Alone, in a ditch, in the middle of a field. My body grew heavy, my lungs burned, then everything went black, and suddenly, a loud crash. Glass shattered, cold air rushed in, strong hands grabbed me, pulling me out, dragging me across the ground. I opened my eyes to a bearded man leaning over me, trying to breathe air into my lungs. His face was close, focused, frightened. Breathe, please, breathe, he whispered. I coughed hard, painfully, and then I inhaled. He froze, and then relief flooded his eyes like he had just come back to life himself. Thank God, he exhaled. A few minutes later I became fully aware again. My throat burned. My body trembled. That's when I noticed blood running down his hand. A deep cut. He had smashed the window with his bare hand. You're bleeding? I whispered. It's nothing, he said quietly. You're alive. That's what matters. His name was Nicholas, a local farmer. He had seen my car go off the road and ran to help me. Ran. For me. I'm a doctor. I save lives. Today, someone saved mine. After a few minutes I was steady enough to sit up. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only weakness. Let me bandage your hand, I said, my voice stronger now. He nodded. I live close by. I'll take you to my house. Then I'll come back for the car. His house was simple, warm, smelling of wood and dry grass. I sat in his kitchen wrapped in a blanket, holding a cup of hot tea while he went back for my car. When Nicholas returned an hour later, we sat quietly, drinking tea. Both of us still a little shaken. I looked at my hands. They were alive. I was alive, if not for him. That night I realized something. Sometimes life breaks apart to save you. Sometimes you have to crash so someone can pull you out of the smoke. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't crying because of betrayal. I was crying because I was still here. And maybe, not everything is lost. Nicholas was 40. His voice was calm and deep, carrying that quiet kind of fatigue you can't hide. His wife had died 3 years ago, a car accident. He said it simply, without details. But the silence that followed held more pain than any long explanation ever could. His son, Lucas, was studying at a military academy. Nicholas showed me a photo, tall, serious, with the same light eyes as his father. "I'm proud of him," Nicholas said softly. "And he's proud of me." He lived alone in a large, cozy house surrounded by open fields. The wooden floors creaked gently. The air smelled like hay, fresh bread, and something warm, like memories. Outside the windows stretched the land he worked with his own hands. The earth was his quiet companion. I stayed with him until the end of my business trip. At first, because I didn't really have anywhere else to go. Then, because I didn't want to leave. We spent a lot of time in silence. But this silence didn't cut like the one with Paul. It was soft, alive, peaceful, like two wounded souls sitting side by side, allowing each other to breathe. On the third morning, I heard water running in the bathroom. When Nicholas walked out, I froze. He had shaved his beard. His face looked open, brighter, younger. The shadow that had hidden behind the beard was gone. It was as if he had shed a few years in one moment. "I haven't shaved since that day," he said, touching his chin almost shyly. "Since she died." My chest tightened, warm and aching at the same time. "There haven't been any women in this house since then," he added quietly. And something shifted inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically, slowly, like sunrise. Without the beard, he didn't look like a broken man who had survived tragedy. He looked alive, strong, and even handsome. We drank tea on the porch, watching the wind move through the wheat fields. In the evenings, I helped him cook dinner. We talked about medicine, about farming, about Lucas, about the children I treat. He listened carefully, as if every word I said truly mattered. And at some point, I caught myself realizing something. I wasn't thinking about Paul. Not about the pizzeria. Not about the laughter. Not about the betrayal. The pain that had torn me apart just days ago seemed to dissolve into the quiet of this house. Into the scent of wood. Into the soft evening light. Into the steady presence of the man who had once pulled me out of smoke, and maybe was still pulling me out of something much deeper. I would wake up in the guest room, hear Nicholas working outside, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anxious. Only calm, and a gentle, cautious hope that was still afraid to say its name. Maybe a heart doesn't just break. Maybe it makes room for something new. And sitting beside Nicholas that evening, I thought for the first time. Maybe my accident wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning. When the day came for me to leave, I realized something simple. Nicholas was no longer just the man who pulled me out of a crashed car. He had become my warmth, my silence without pain, my hope, my future, without manipulation, without hypocrisy, without lies or betrayal. He stood in the yard that morning, sunlight touching his face. And I noticed again how his eyes had changed. There was light in them now. Nicholas stepped closer. He wrapped his arms around me, firm but gentle, as if he was afraid I might break. His hand brushed through my hair, and he kissed my forehead. "I'll wait for you here," he said softly. "As long as it takes." There was no pressure in his voice. No fear of losing me. Just certainty. And peace. When I returned home, everything felt smaller. Tighter. Foreign. Paul was standing in the kitchen. The same man I had spent 8 years with. But I no longer saw my life in him. I saw a small, frightened man who loved another woman and was too afraid to admit it. Hiding. Lying. I silently took out my phone and showed him the photos. His face changed. The excuses started. Meaningless phrases. Empty words. It's not what you think. We were just, I didn't mean to hurt you. It was disgusting. I looked at him, and felt nothing. No pain. No rage. No jealousy. Just an ending. I filed for divorce. And for the first time in a long time, I felt strong. Not loud strength. Quiet strength. The kind that simply walks forward. A month later, I drove down the same road outside the city. But this time my hands weren't shaking. My heart was steady. The air felt clean. He was sitting on the porch. With a cup of tea. Waiting. When my car stopped, Nicholas stood up and almost ran toward me. His embrace was warm, tender, real. No fear. No hesitation. You came, he whispered, like it was a miracle. I came, I answered. He took my hands in his. The same hands that once bled when he shattered glass to save me. Stay, he said. Be the lady of this home. Live here with me. No lies. No resentment. No betrayal. No cruelty. With the warmth of the fireplace. With respect. With care for each other. With tenderness. With love. I looked at the house. The fields. Him. And I understood. This wasn't running away. This was choosing. I nodded. That evening we sat by the fireplace. The flames cracked softly. Outside, the fields moved with the wind. His hand rested in mine, steady. Certain. My heart didn't hurt anymore. It was finally home. And I knew. Sometimes you have to lose what destroys you to find what builds you. My accident wasn't the end. It led me to a love that doesn't shout. It simply keeps you warm. A year passed. Then another. Life didn't turn into a fairy tale. It became real. And that's exactly why it became beautiful. I set up a small medical office inside Nicholas's house. Children from nearby farms came with scraped knees, colds, and wide trusting eyes. Every time I heard their laughter in the yard, I felt it. I was exactly where I was meant to be. Nicholas worked the fields with the same quiet strength he once used to pull me from smoke. In the evenings, he would come inside smelling of sun and earth, wrap his arms around me from behind, and rest his chin on my shoulder. How was your day, doctor? He'd tease. And I would laugh, lightly, freely, without pain. Lucas visited during his breaks from the academy. At first he was careful, reserved. But little by little, warmth replaced distance in his eyes. One evening he called me, Miss Monica, and later, simply, Monica. And in that change, there was acceptance. Our home grew new rituals. Sundays meant pie and long conversations on the porch. Winter meant blankets, tea, and firelight. Spring meant walking through fields in bloom, as if the world itself dared to live again. Sometimes I would look at Nicholas and think about how strangely fate works. How delicately it weaves pain and rescue together. That day in the ditch could have been my end. Instead, it became my beginning. We didn't make dramatic promises. We didn't swear eternity. We simply chose each other, every single day. No lies, no fear, no masks. One quiet summer evening, as the sky turned gold, Nicholas held me close and whispered, "You saved me just as much as I saved you." I rested my head against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. It was steady, calm, just like mine. I wasn't afraid of loss anymore. Because I knew, real love doesn't destroy you. It holds you, warms you, and stays. And if someone ever asks me where my home is, I won't give them an address. I'll say, my home is in his arms. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss new stories. And also write in the comments how you liked this story on a scale of 1 to 5. Watch the following video and enjoy watching.